On the 21st of September 2018, Telltale Games had announced a majority studio closure, leaving a small group of about 25 employees to fill in their legal obligations to Netflix and some unspecified deals as of writing the script. Before we actually get into discussion about the closure, we'll take a short walk down memory lane, or an extra small pier, that is Telltale Games. Back when LucasArts was still an active company, they did have a large part in the booming point-and-click adventure game renaissance, from the 1980s to the late 1990s. This led to some stellar franchises like The Secret of Monkey Island, Maniac Mansion, and the initial video game adaptations of the Sam & Max franchise. We will return to Sam & Max momentarily. The company was booming, releasing financial success after financial success, but in the 2000s the genre started to fade away from the mainstream. This is when the team of two creative leaders broke away from the company to form what would be known as the infamous Telltale Games. The duo started their company with a financial flop in the form of Telltale's Texas Hold'em. Not to say the game was poorly received by critics, however, as it won the Indie Game of the Month in July of 2005 from PC Zone magazine. Whilst the game was basically a test of their in-house engine, the Telltale tool.
I mean, we knew Rocket was a great character, but, we got Nolan North to do the voice, and we were able to really knock that out of the park.
Oh no! Get me down! Get me down! My sweet, precious little baby!
It did show promise. With public having knowledge of why the company was founded, a new wave of adventure games were about to hit the market, and they will be successful. Sam & Max, the game responsible for Telltale forming, had, in 2005, expired its deal with LucasArts, and the creator Steve Purcell approached Telltale about making a game for the franchise, as he knew what the company could do, based on their work, with LucasArts. The first Sam & Max, developed by Telltale, was released in an episodic format akin to the initial idea the team had, and was their first financial success. Prior to this, they'd made games for franchises with small but extremely dedicated fan bases. These games include the likes of Wallace and Gromit, Bone, a comic series, and multiple CSI games for Ubisoft, which were also developed in an episodic format but were released in singular packages, with all middling to good financial success on multiple consoles. When Season 1 of Sam & Max released, however, it was considered the first successful release of a game in an episodic format, as prior to this, Bone fell through, and Wallace and Gromit was a boring slog. The success of Sam & Max meant that Telltale had become trusted to work with bigger franchises, and they started to develop for larger names in 2008. The most notable ones being Back to the Future the game and Jurassic Park the game, which they acquired the rights to from NBC Universal. The latter was poorly received for being more an interactive movie than gaming experience, but the former was to become known as the missing Back to the Future movie in the fans, a part 4, if you will. The failure of Jurassic Park made Telltale more determined to make a good story-heavy interactive film of sorts, and so they did. In 2010, Telltale acquired the rights to make a game based on Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead, and the Fables comics, respectively. They, like many of their games in the past, had a lot of creative freedom with Walking Dead, and strived to make an endearing story and characters with a good balance for gameplay.
Fellas down to this prison, Lord knows how many. Usually it's about now I get the, I didn't do it.
Not from me.
The Walking Dead is basically what put the company in the public eye in a big way, grossing about $40 million across all platform releases for the first season of the franchise alone. Earlier, I mentioned a comic called Fables. You may be a little unfamiliar with the source because in the public eyes, Fables is relatively unknown, kind of depressing. But the video game adaptation has a large following, as it's not known as Telltale's Fables, it is known as The Wolf Among Us. The Wolf Among Us becoming a financial hit is somewhat of an anomaly in Telltale's library, as it's an adaptation of a lesser-known source. Doing this somehow left people wanting more. After the first season was done, we heard very little of the franchise, until, in 2017, Season 2 was scheduled for a 2018 release. This, like many other games, would later be cancelled. The main thing you likely clicked on this video for was the reason behind the closure, and if any of the games will be released. After some digging, I can all but confirm that most of the franchises will not be completed, or receive any follow-up entries. The closure does mean the loss of Season 2s to some of the franchises that I'm about to list. Guardians of the Galaxy, Game of Thrones, and The Wolf Among Us. The closure seemed strange, however, as the company had made a recent deal with Netflix to make a Stranger Things game, which would have definitely turned a profit due to the die-hard fandom of the show. Alas, with the closure, Stranger Things the game will be subjected to development hell, possibly forever. Before we get into the meat of the closure, we must discuss the state of their flagship and most expensive franchise, The Walking Dead. Thanks to Skybound and fan outcry, the final episodes of the season will be made. The employees who were laid off have migrated to other companies, and the dev team behind the series finale moved to Skybound, so they could finish up the project that has such an impact on the story of the franchise. And that marks time to finish up this video with a discussion about the company's closure. Due to severe issues with funding, the company had been on a decline. Using the same game engine for 6 years had made the games lose some of their luster. But this was not the only issue. It pains me to say that, according to ex-employees, Telltale had toxic management strategies. The company didn't pay its employees fairly, from no overtime to paying less than the work was worth. The company had apparently been doing this for years, making the company employees work ridiculous hours for very low pay, but high effort is borderline criminal. That's it. It's over. All that could be said has been said, and I personally feel like the company has left a legacy to be proud of, despite the downfalls of the company nearing the end. From its roots in LucasArts to the end of the company, releasing over 100 games and many successes along the way, I have a feeling the world will miss and remember Telltale Games.